before I show you how to navigate Ellis, I want to level set on the three different kinds of editing that are available to writers. There is a developmental edit, a line edit, and a copy edit. The most important edit that any writer will go through when they finish their draft is a developmental edit. A developmental edit is looking at the story architecture. So you want to make sure that the furniture in your house is not crooked before you start polishing your prose or catching any grammar or punctuation errors. A developmental edit is going to look at the structure, the pacing, the stakes, the plot logic, the character arcs, the emotional payoff, and that all the characters are working in concert to achieve that reader experience that keeps the pages turning. This is why a developmental edit is expensive. And this is where EllisAI lives. In the age of AI, folks usually confuse editing with rewriting, and none of these editors are rewriting your prose for you. Let's take a look at what a developmental edit includes. When you hire a developmental editor, they have a few deliverables. They are going to read your entire manuscript and provide you a global editorial letter. It's a big picture diagnosis of the entire manuscript. They're also going to make notes inside of the manuscript, and then they'll give you some global revision priorities. And typically they charge anywhere between $2,000 and $4,200 for a service like this. Ellis is also going to do all of these things because she is an AI trained developmental editor. She is able to analyze manuscripts at a deep level. If you still want to have a human editor look at your manuscript after you have worked with Ellis, you can absolutely do that as well. But at least your conversation with that developmental editor is going to be strategic. You've already caught a lot of your structural and character deepening issues with Ellis. Let's take a look at how she works. On your dashboard, you're going to start a new edit with Ellis. Ellis is going to deliver a menu and ask you to format your manuscript. She's just trying to get context for your novel, and she also wants to make sure that your chapters are clearly labeled so that she can accurately put them in her manuscript map. Please do not give Ellis any other information like outlines or other manuscripts attached to your original manuscript. Please adhere to these guidelines for manuscript formatting. Let's see how it works. I've already formatted this manuscript and I am going to attach it. Ellis now has my manuscript and she's going to first read my entire manuscript and deliver a global editorial letter. Then she's going to move to her chapter by chapter developmental plan. Please do not skim over your global editorial letter. This is about an 8 to 14 page document that does a really keen analytical look at your entire manuscript. It takes a couple of times to read that letter to absorb all the important structural and character deepening analysis that Ellis is doing on your manuscript. What happens with a lot of first-time writers is that they get overwhelmed. They see all this feedback and they're like, oh my goodness, there is so much work to do. Well, spoiler alert. The magic happens when you're doing your developmental edit. Our first or second draft is just us getting the story down on paper. And now we really get to carve and polish our David. Here, Ellis is delivering the global editorial letter. You can read through it and then save editorial letter to your manuscript hub. This is how you know that you have formatted the manuscript correctly. You will see all your chapters populated into the manuscript map. Once you have read and absorbed your editorial letter and you're feeling comfortable with that level of feedback, you can access Ellis by clicking on her avatar. She's going to welcome you with the script and remind you of a few housekeeping things, and then you can start getting your developmental edit chapter by chapter. Ellis is going to deliver her editorial insights chapter by chapter, and she is going to tie them back into the global editorial letter. She's going to tell you what's working structurally, where the scene starts dipping and why. And she's also going to take a look at your characters and see how they're performing in scene. She's also going to give you some creative suggestions so that you can really understand how to put all this feedback in play. You can ask Ellis questions here about her specific feedback and have conversations back and forth. If you are generally good with this revision plan, you can go ahead and insert it into the revision plan. And here is where Ellis will insert the revision plan for this chapter that you guys have agreed upon. When Ellis has reviewed a chapter, you will see a little green dot next to the chapter number. Let's keep talking to Ellis. What I really love about this method is that doing a developmental edit can be a monumental endeavor. And when you get to have this level of insight and everything is very organized, it becomes very doable. You can also talk to Alice and ask her different questions while you're going through this edit. Let me show you. So she's interactive and you can stop and have conversations anytime while you're going through your chapter by chapter developmental edit. What I find some writers do is that they like some of the stuff that Ellis says, so they'll just grab some of the information that she has said during their conversations, and maybe they just paste it in the chapter notes for that chapter. And I really like this approach because in the age of AI, it's like a never-ending loop of brainstorming. And I like to call that writer's flood. Before you know it, you'll end up with 600 pages of some insights. Nothing is curated, nothing follows a guided editorial sequence, and it becomes very challenging for the writer to take that feedback and make it actionable for their developmental edit. One important thing to note is that you can have a lot of conversations with Ellis back and forth and keep some of the stuff that you want to keep in your chapter notes, but make sure that you end up with a chapter plan in this format for each of your chapters, because this is the curated revision plan based on her editorial insights. Ellis is really good at identifying structural issues in each of your chapters. When she delivers a chapter plan, if there's something that you don't agree with or that you think that she misread, just let her know. That hardly happens, but it does happen on occasion, depending on how well baked your draft is. One important thing to note is that Ellis is a developmental editor. Typically, writers that engage a developmental editor, they're giving them already a second or third draft of their manuscript. Now, you're welcome to give Ellis your first draft as well, but if you have a very messy first draft, a developmental edit with Ellis may be just overwhelming for you because she's going to look at everything that's working and not working. So what I like to tell those folks that have a very messy first draft is get your global editorial letter from Ellis and read through it, because there's so many craft insights. You're not only going to learn what you need to go into remastering your structure of your messy first draft with Olivia, but you will also learn craft techniques from her editorial letter. Once you have your full editorial plan, chapter by chapter, you can begin making your edits following your revision plan that you have with Ellis. Now, if at any time you get stuck while you're writing or revising, remember that Ellis is right here waiting to chat with you. She knows your entire novel. She's your developmental editor. She's looked at everything chapter by chapter. She understands your vision. And together, you guys can continue editing. So while you edit your manuscript, she will be here with you, helping in case you have any questions. The result is that you are going to move through your edits with clarity and momentum. A couple of other things about Ellis: you can add new chapters at any time. During your revision process, she's always going to put it down here, but you can just drag it and reorder it anywhere. And then you can write your new chapter here. Many times we are missing tentpole scenes or bridge chapters when we're doing a developmental edit.